Hi everyone. I can't see you all, but hi. My name is Zara. I am a second year in St. Catherine's College at Cambridge, and I study Spanish and Italian. And yeah, I just wanted to talk a bit about the process of applying, a bit about my experience, and David will talk a bit about Cambridge as well.
Right, hello everybody. Yes, my name is David Bainbridge. I'm one of the admissions tutors at one of the Cambridge colleges. We'll talk about the difference between the college and the university in a bit. And I'm just going to have a bit of a chat to you about the sort of why you might want to apply to Cambridge, the process of getting in. I know many of you will be interested in the sort of financial side of things as well. Obviously, that kind of differs. Different people are in different situations as far as that's concerned. And so I'm not going to say that much about specifics to do with that. But there's the general guidance is obviously go to the Cambridge website for that, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So I'm going to try and share a presentation. Is that okay, Zara?
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay, great. As I say, this is kind of the university's official presentation, so I might sort of go over some bits quite quickly, because some bits are kind of more interesting than others. It's the usual thing. Why might you want to go to one university rather than the other? Well, I'll work through these one by one, but Cambridge is one of the most highly sort of thought of universities in the world. As you're probably aware, the UK is pretty good for universities in general, and we like to think Cambridge is one of the best ones, certainly one of the oldest ones. We're the second oldest university after Oxford in the UK, and possibly, I think we're the third oldest university in the world. I can't remember. People keep changing. Anyway, it was very old. So the first side of things is Cambridge is well known for its teaching. We have lots and lots of different courses, and they're very flexible courses as well. They often sort of merge in with each other. As you've heard, Zara is doing modern languages, but that in itself consists of many, many different options and can overlap with other courses as well, such as Asian, Middle Eastern studies, and in all sorts of complex and classics as well. It can overlap with. One of the things you do find with UK universities is that the universities which are most successful in research also seem to be the ones that people most want to go to be taught at. And the reasons for this is you get to be taught by all these people who are at the cutting edge of research in whatever field it is. I remember when I was a student at Cambridge many years ago, being taught by a couple of Nobel Prize winners, because the thing you do get at UK universities is pretty much everybody teaches undergraduates at some point, which isn't necessarily true at some, say, US universities, where some people get so high up in the system that they don't really teach much anymore, which is a bit sad. Now, obviously, we're sort of really going to contrast the teaching the university does with things that the colleges do in a bit. And the university organises all the big stuff: lectures, practicals, lab work, field courses, some language classes. It kind of depends, bits and exactly depends sort of what course you're on as far as that's concerned. Some arts and humanities seminars are run by the university. One of the very distinctive things about Cambridge University, however, is that these funny little things called colleges. Cambridge is divided into 30 or so colleges, and they're also important to you academically. They're important from the point of view of sort of academic mentoring. If you came to Cambridge, you have somebody called a director of studies to be the person who makes sure you get all your various bits of teaching. But colleges also do this small group teaching, which is very characteristic of the Cambridge or Oxford, of course. Oxford run a similar system, and that means that in each of your major subjects, or in your topics, or your papers, depends what course you're doing, you'll have something called a supervision every week. So many people have maybe 3 of them a week, although that does vary. And in that, there'll be an academic who's either from your college or appointed by your college. And you'll be in a group of 2 or 3 or 4 people, those common numbers. And first of all, they'll set you work. They'll go through your work with you face to face. Also, it's your chance to ask further questions about things of the course that either you didn't understand or particularly interested you, but also they'll have things that they'll want to go through with you, so they'll grill you as well. And so it's quite an intensive form of teaching, having this for a few hours every week, but it is very rewarding. I think it's one of the main reasons we just get through a lot more stuff in a lot more depth than most universities do. And this is true pretty much of any subject. Obviously, what you'll be doing will depend on the subject, but the principle of this teaching remains the same. We have the lowest dropout rate of, along with Oxford, of any universities in the UK. And one of the reasons for this is I think we look after you very well. As I've talked about the Director of Studies already, they're sort of your academic mentor. You also appointed somebody called a tutor, who's really to signpost you to help if you have sort of non-academic issues, so financial or emotional or health issues, or family problems, or international students. It can be, you know, the problems of sort of traveling in and out, especially at the moment with COVID. But there's so many other sources of help as well, sort of medical help within the college, but other sources of help as well. That can be from the students groups, but also there's a university counselling service. There's so many different sources of help available, and I think that's one of the reasons why the vast majority of students who come to start study with us finish off studying with us as well. And they're just some of the university sources of help as well. Careers Service is worth mentioning particularly. That's a lifelong service. Once you've been a student at Cambridge, you have access to our Careers Service throughout your life. And I'm often a bit critical of Careers Services because they don't really, know much about the real world, but ours, I have to say, is excellent. It is particularly good, and Zara probably hasn't needed it yet, but she will be able to make use of it later on, should she need it, and until she retires, indeed. I think although the colleges do offer a great deal, I think if you ask most people why they're pleased they went to Cambridge, I think many of them would say, well, many of them got together in a year where there wasn't COVID around, would say that it's because they get to be in a college, and it's really the social side of being in a college. So we can probably ask Sarah about that a bit at the end, although obviously her this year so far hasn't been a normal year. Most people, although we'd like people to say, oh, it's because of the course, oh, it's because of the teaching, oh, it's because of this and that, most of them I think would actually say it's just really good fun being in these small social units. And having good time. So, because for most people, their college ends up being their main social hub. Obviously, you will know people from other colleges, you'll know people doing your subject from other colleges, you'll meet people in probably university societies, but still, I think for many people, their big social hub is their college. You get college accommodation for at least 3 years at the Cambridge colleges. If you're doing a 4-year course, you may well get accommodation in your 4th year. If it's an even longer course, you'll probably be a graduate by the time you do the last few years. You may be eligible to apply for graduate accommodation as well. I think accommodation at Cambridge in general is very good. It varies because, of course, it varies even within colleges. Within our college, there's some lovely old accommodation, which is beautiful, and there's some lovely new accommodation where everything actually works. And it's really up to you to decide what sort of thing you want. If you want an ensuite bathroom, then you're probably not going to be able to live in somewhere that was built in the 17th century. But it really depends what you want. The cost of living for accommodation in Cambridge, I think, is pretty good for UK university. There are various reasons for that, but if you want to actually see what rent rates are, you can actually look them up on individual colleges' websites. So comparable, I think, sometimes better than other universities. So there are some UK universities which are less expensive, some UK universities which are more expensive. The final thing is that Cambridge graduates usually find it pretty easy to work their way into the career that they want to. Obviously, starting your career is never easy, but we do find that our students have quite good access to careers, not only in the UK, but also around the world. I think just because most employers know that for a start, we get very good students in at the beginning, but also they just get a very thorough education with us. But also they learn the life skill of balancing work against other things. It's very important to us that you do not spend all your time at Cambridge working. Obviously, we do want you to work extremely hard when you come to us, but one of the things that promotes that is that people get some downtime to do something else. And it's actually quite surprising how many people actually get their career and get their jobs when they leave the university because of links they've made through societies and sports and things like that. It may seem unlikely, but it does seem to happen. So as I say, it was very important to us that you do something other than work, although we don't actually care exactly what that is, but it's important that you do something else. So that's the career side of things. So obviously there's lots of text on this slide, and don't worry about all of this too much. Cambridge, like Oxford, is a collegiate university, which means that some things are done by the university and some things are done by college. Quite a lot of your everyday life is to do with your college accommodation, food, small group teaching, many of the facilities you use for study, so libraries, but also sports facilities, music facilities. Many of these you may well find on a college basis, although of course there are facilities across the university as well. The other thing that people do sometimes find quite surprising is that the colleges do the admissions process as well. So your application, if you decide to apply to Cambridge, will be dealt with by an individual college. So many people actually choose a college to apply to. So they say, I want to apply to, they apply to St Catharine's for, I don't know, modern languages, for example. You can make something that's called an open application, which is absolutely fine, where you don't make a college choice, but it just means you will then just get allocated to a college through an central algorithm, and they'll treat you as if you had applied to them. And that's absolutely fine to do as well. I think my informal advice would be just have a look at some college websites. If you see one you think you like, then go for that one. It doesn't affect your chances of getting into the university as a whole, and we'll sort of see why this is in a bit. So what do we want? Well, I suppose the first thing to say, again, bits of text on this slide, the thing we are an academic institution. So what we want is we want all the people who have to show the most academic potential, who we think will do the best on our course. Now, how do we assess academic potential? Well, there's various things we look at. Obviously, academic record feeds into that. We look at whatever exam results, effectively, you have in the past. But that's not absolutely everything. It is important, but it's not absolutely everything. Obviously, public exams are important. You will, when you apply, you'll write to any UK university, you'll write what's called a personal statement. Now, to us, probably the most important thing about that is things that we might pick off it to ask you about at interview. We won't necessarily assess whether your personal statement is good or bad, but we may ask you about things that are on it. This may be more likely in some of the arts and humanities subjects, or perhaps in some of the vocational science subjects. In some arts and humanities subjects, you may be asked to submit some written work. This will usually be work you've done at school that you've done anyway. We probably won't ask you to do anything extra, preferably something with that's been marked by your teachers, because one of the main functions of that is to give us an idea of what sort of feedback you're getting on your written work, as much as what you've actually written. Some subjects, most science subjects, and many, but not all, art subjects, we run these things called admissions assessments. These can be run in a couple of different ways, and of course full details are on the website. And they do feed into our decision, but they're certainly not the only thing that feeds into our decision. Then we decide, based on all of that information we have there, who to interview. And we will interview, in most art subjects, we'll interview 80 to 90% of applicants. In some subjects that are particularly oversubscribed, like medicine or engineering, we may use the admissions assessment to actually decide to make the number low, just because we have so many applicants that it may go down to nearer 50 to 60%. But we try and interview all the applicants that we think are in with a chance of gaining a place on one of our courses. And then we look at all of this information together. We don't sort of do it stage by stage. At every stage, we look at all the information we have. So if you have an interview, it doesn't mean that after that, all we're thinking about is the interview. We're looking at everything on that list. So your academic record is important. Your admissions assessment is important if you do one. Your interview is important. But all of these things are taken together. We do get a reference from your school as well, although to be honest, most of our applicants, the reference is just very, very good. But if you've faced any particular disadvantage educationally, that's quite a good place for that to go, if your school could mention that. Personal statements should really be more positive things about you, but we'll talk about the personal statement in a bit. So we'll work through the different ones a bit at a time. Now, obviously, you will need to choose a course that you want to do. One thing I would say is that for most people, if you're thinking about your career already, for many careers, it doesn't matter what's the course you study at university. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor or an engineer or an architect or a vet, then yes, you have no choice. You have to apply for those courses. Even if you want to be a lawyer, of course, you may want to do law at university, but you don't have to. You can do another course and then do a conversion course. But for many other jobs, you may find it doesn't matter that much what you did at university. Some jobs might like you to do something sort of numerical and analytical. Some jobs may really value people with language skills. But many other jobs are very open-minded, and basically what the thing to do is just to do as well as you possibly can in a strong academic course at a university that's quite hard to get into, I suppose. So be open-minded. Also think about courses that aren't necessarily taught at your school. We have a course called Anglo-Saxon, Northern Celtic, which is a great course, but I think many people don't think of doing it. On the sciences, within our natural sciences course, there's earth sciences and material science. And again, many people come to Cambridge, love those options and end up making it their degree. So you don't just have to do things that were courses that you did at school. Talked about choosing the college. I wouldn't worry too much about this. Your college will be very important to you once you're a student. However, don't stress about the decision. They're all good. Look on the websites and think about, do you want to be in the middle of town? Do you want to be a bit further out? What's the accommodation like over the 3 years? Do they seem generally sort of supportive in your subject? I wouldn't stress too much about the decision, except of course St Catharine's is the best one. But other than that, I don't think it's hugely important. Many people just look through a few websites, decide, yeah, I like the look of this one, and go for it on instinct, and that's absolutely fine. And if you really can't decide, as it says on this slide, you can make an open application, but why not, pick one that you like the look of and go for it. Now, one thing you might have to do is you might have to take an admissions assessment for the subject you're applying for. And again, all the Cambridge website says which subjects have admissions assessments. Now, if the admission assessment is what we call a pre-interview assessment, you may have to register for it at the time you apply for the course that you want to apply for. Now, you have to apply for any undergraduate degree course in Britain. You have to apply through this organisation called UCAS, UCAS, ucas.org, I think it is. And your application will go through those. So you have to go through them. And for Cambridge or Oxford or medicine or veterinary or dentistry anywhere, you have to apply by the 15th of October. So there's the application date. And so that's also the time when you'd have to apply for one of these at-interview assessments. But you probably, what you'd want to do is get your school to register you for the assessment, and then you and the school cooperate on your UCAS application. And you put all your academic information on the UCAS application, and then you write your personal statement. Now, as I've said, in a way, your personal statement is probably more important to other UK universities than it is to Cambridge, because they may well not interview you, whereas we will. So for us, it's really to give us something to ask about. I think there's a very good, if you look on the UCAS website, there's a very good guide to writing your personal statement. I would just follow that guide maybe slant it a little bit more towards your academic interests, but that guide seems very, very sensible to me. It says on here extracurricular activities aren't relevant to us and won't be taken into account. That is absolutely true for Cambridge, but other universities may like to see the things that you do other than your study. So do put that on your UCAS application if you're applying to other UK universities. Just bear in mind, we won't actually look at it, but do put it on for your other university choices. One thing we are quite hot on, and don't worry about this too much because you may find you've done it already, is what we call supercurricular. And this is essentially anything that takes you beyond the academic side of your school courses. But what I would, and so I would say I would interpret this very broadly. So this involves reading. This can be printed reading. It can be a magazine, books, magazines. It can be reading online. It can be watching online videos, documentaries. It can be watching TV documentaries. For some subjects, it can be reading broadsheet newspapers. It can be going on educational visits. It can be competitions like, I don't know, the International Chemistry Olympiad or something like that. All of these things count. The other thing is, don't feel it has to be too directly focused. If you're applying for modern languages and you're particularly interested in a certain aspect of English language literature, that is fine as well. If you're interested in applying for medicine, but you're particularly fascinated by a bit of physics, that is absolutely fine. Interpret this very, very broadly. So because of this, if you are just generally interested in the thing you're thinking of applying for, you may well find you've kind of done this already. It can be quite useful just to make a little list of 4 or 5 bits of extra research or study, or just something you've watched and thought about, and just your thoughts about them, why you watched them, why you found them interesting, what you got out of them, what you learned, whether you went they took you further. So rather than just a long list of tens of things, 4 or 5 things that you've been interested in that you'd be happy to talk about that interview is fine. So, you know, if you're thinking of if you're interested in geography, apply for geography, but you've read a lot about, I don't know, Byzantine history, that's fine. That's the sort of thing that can go on. So interpret this very broadly. And so you may find that you've actually kind of done this already. If you're just interested in science or geography or economics, you may find that you've actually just done this. There is another form. I'm not going to talk about this very much at all, but the deadline for this form is a week after your main application. Now, it may be slightly earlier for applicants from outside the UK, so keep an eye on our website. I won't say much about this form. It's not very, you do have to fill it in, but it's not very exciting. So it probably won't make a huge difference to your application's chances. But just remember, you do have to fill this in. That's all I'm going to say about that, because I'll say it's really not very exciting. You'll be given full details about any written work you have to submit, as I say, more likely in the arts and science, arts and humanities, more likely we'd want something that you've written anyway for your course, just as a part of work you've done at school, and hopefully something that's marked as well. The other thing is, some courses, if they don't have an admissions assessment, what we call a pre-interview assessment, so that will probably take place late October, early November, you may have to do some sort of assessment at or near the time you come for an interview. You don't have to register for that in advance. That will just be automatic. But again, the website says which sorts of courses have which sorts of assessments. And some courses don't have an assessment at all, I should mention. So, for example, maths or psychology. And then interviews. Now, you hear quite a lot of stuff about how admissions interviews are at Cambridge. And in general, what they are, usually you have 2 of them. Usually they're about 25 minutes long. There can be some variation on this, but they're not the only thing that's going to sort of decide the outcome of your application. Remember, what we're looking for is people with the most academic potential. So very often, as it says here, it is an academic discussion, but it's basically just like, and the way you can prepare for it is just arrange a session where you just talk to one of your teachers for, I don't know, half an hour about things on your course and maybe try and work some things out. Of course, what you do will depend on the subject you apply for. So if you apply for a science, we may well ask you about things on your personal statement that you said you've done, but quite a lot of it will set you problems, give you new concepts to think about. In the arts, you may be given an article or a text and asked to comment on it. You may be given it in advance of the interview, or you may be given it in the interview. And the idea is really about using, we've asked Zara about her experience in interviews, asked to use the skills you've applied at school, and very often to apply them to something new, you know, a scientific concept or a text or something that you've never seen before, and just see how you get on. Now, we might do things that are quite hard, and so don't worry if they're hard, because that's fine. It's often quite a good sign if an interview is hard, because it means we're really trying to push you and see how far you can go. But there aren't usually trick questions. We're not trying to find out what you can get wrong. We're really trying to see how far you can go. Also, the interviews can be quite conversational. Often we'll ask you something and you'll have a go, and then we'll say, well, what do you think about so-and-so? So don't worry if we're talking. We'll often talk you through things. And indeed, I spend most of my time in interviews, especially in sciences. I find that you suggest something, and the applicant says, "Oh, you could try so and so," and you go, "Yeah, so give that a try." You're often actually confirming that people are going in the right direction. You're often just saying, "Yes, carry on. Yeah, why did you say that? What do you think is the reason for that?" Yeah, so that could be, couldn't it? So occasionally people go down a route that actually we think, oh, that's probably not going to take them in the right direction. We just pull you back again and try something else. So don't worry if we seem to be doing quite a lot of the talking. That's absolutely fine. But obviously, do come prepared just to have a go at something. And don't worry too much about getting things wrong. Just come prepared to try and sort of get into things the best way you possibly can. Some of the things we ask, certainly in science, there isn't actually a known answer. We're just interested to see how you approach the issue, the problem. Okay, entry requirements. Well, of course, for applicants from around the world, this is very complicated. But if you go on the general Cambridge website, there is a section called qualifications. Obviously, go through all the UK ones fairly quickly. But there is a full detailed list of all the international qualifications we accept, where we can deal with almost any international qualification, even if they're not on our website. You can always email the college you're thinking of applying to and saying, "Oh, my country isn't on your website. What can we do?" And the answer is we actually have a huge database, and actually there's a huge national database which UK universities use, and we would sort of we would be able to look in to that. Nothing has changed as far as COVID-19 is concerned. The principle of the applications process is the same. It's just we had to do our interviews online this year. But that didn't actually change as much as perhaps we thought it would. And we're all debating about what we're going to be doing from now on, because obviously that may still be true for interviews at the end of this year. We don't really know. One of the things I would say is that if you are thinking of applying to a college, that gives you a great place where you can write and ask for advice. So if you think, am I not doing exactly the right qualifications, then you can email us, because you may be surprised. You don't have to be studying geography to apply for geography. You don't have to be studying economics to apply for economics. You don't have to be doing biology to apply for biology. You only need to be doing one language at school to apply for modern languages, for example. So if you have any questions, obviously just email, especially individual college admissions officers, because you probably find you get quite a thorough response quite quickly. No, so there are various sources of information. There's always too much information, isn't there? UCAS, as I said, is the charity that you apply through to apply to any UK university. That's our main, I mean, just Google Cambridge University, go to the main website, click the study one, rather than write all of that down. But there are special bits for finance and also for international students. So they'll tell you what the fees are for international students, and they'll also give you an idea of what financial support is available. We tend not to have full bursaries to pay full fees for international students, but there are sources of funding like the Cambridge Trust and other sorts of bits and pieces as well. So obviously everybody's situation is kind of different. So that's always the best thing to just say, go to the basic Cambridge admissions website and look at the finance and the international students section. So I suppose having said that, perhaps one of the things I should do is I should ask Zara, I suppose, how did you prepare for your application and what was the interview process like?
So I had to hand up a pre-written links, like a written sample of my work. I think it was maybe two pieces of two essays I'd written previously, and they were marked. So I handed up those beforehand. I also had to sit the assessment when I went to Cambridge. So I sat the assessment when I was there. I remember reading, I don't know, that was for the interviews there. So I had the assessment and then I went back later and I had to read like a text, maybe like, I can't remember how much before, but a little before the interviews. And I had two interviews, which were about 25, half an hour. One was in, because I was applying for Spanish and Italian, the first one was in English and the second one was in Spanish. I didn't speak any Italian because I applied to do Italian from beginners, from scratch. So yeah, nothing, but an Italian professor and a Spanish professor was there. So we did a little bit of like grammar and then we just talked about language in general, really. And I think what you said was definitely very true, that the interview is kind of like a introduction into what a supervision is. And I think it's just, yeah, it's sort of a conversation and like they guide you the whole way through. And like if you, and they just try and get more information out of you. So it was actually quite relaxed. I was very stressed. I was very nervous about it before, but it was actually very normal. Yeah, it's just a conversation and it's, yeah, pretty much just an academic conversation. They try and guide you into the direction and you kind of figure out things and you're like, oh, I never thought of this. You learn things in the interview and all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing we often find is that if we get down to sort of the technical side of things quite quickly,
yeah.
We don't sort of spend lots of time asking about your past or even why you applied for the subject, because you've applied for the subject, so you must be interested. You've potentially signed up to do it for 3 years. So we tend to get down to something pretty specific fairly quickly. I mean, I do, when I say like my subject is veterinary medicine, I do ask people why they want to do veterinary medicine, but they all say the same sorts of things. I mean, why would you want to do it? Because you want to be a vet. And so, yeah, we get down to sort of nitty gritty quite quickly. And so that does, I think, help if people are nervous, because it kind of takes you, you haven't got time to concentrate on being nervous because, you know, you're too busy doing stuff. And so, because, you know, we don't want to take people just because they're confident or not take people because they're shy or nervous. We try and sort of see past all of that. And we usually can. So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I know who will have it. So what are you doing, Spanish and Italian?
Yeah, Spanish and Italian.
So I know the people who will have interviewed you as well. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a few questions cropping up. So I'm not necessarily going to do them on the order they came in. So if you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, basically, what would you need to do? You need to do medicine. You wouldn't have any choice. You'd have to apply to us for medicine. And then doctors in the UK training in the UK don't really specialise until really at least 5 or 6 years in. And so you would do the general medical course, and partly because many people change their mind about what they want to do. People who thought they want to do orthopedics may decide they want to do, I don't know, pediatrics or something. And so you just apply for the medicine course, and you wouldn't have to specify any particular interest when you did that. If you do want to apply for medicine, you want to be doing lots and lots of science at school, especially chemistry. Does Cambridge offer sports scholarships? Not in the same way that lots of American universities do, no. So when people apply, it's all based on academics at that stage. Once you're a student at Cambridge, there is financial support for sport. You often via your college, but there's some university support as well. I don't know, do you do anything like that, Zara?
Yeah. So I'm actually the athletic captain for St. Catherine's College, and there are different sports bursaries almost where they like fund like you're getting equipment, but you have to have a certain performance level as well and like show that, and then you will get a certain amount of money that they will give you so you can buy things that you need. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but I think it varies depending on what you are doing and what level you're performing at. And I think it's more college based than university based, to my knowledge. I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can like gym memberships and things like that. They will sponsor you for things like that, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Good. A question, I suppose a bit related back to the thing about careers. If somebody wants to do international relations, what courses would they take? Well, if you want to do it as a career, the answer is you can do any course you like, really. If you particularly want to do a course that involves international relations, then I think you're probably thinking of things like we have HSPS, Human, Social and Political Studies, or possibly history as well. But you wouldn't have to do that if you want to follow international relations as your career. Many of our students have no idea what they want to do in future when they come to us, as far as I can tell, and that's absolutely fine. Well, there's a question from you about finance. Can you see that from Zara? Hello, Zara. With regards to financing your undergraduate degree, did you get an open scholarship from the TT government?
Right. Yes, I won an open scholarship in general studies, but I didn't end up taking my scholarship because I'm also half British. So I ended up figuring out it through that because I've lived also in Britain for half my life. So my fees were slightly different to international students. But I think the government scholarship is probably a very good way to go. And I actually have a few friends. Joanna, I don't know if anybody knows Joanna, but she went to SAGS and she is the year above me. So she's on her year abroad now. She's also doing MML. So if anybody has any questions related to that, you could always contact me later and I can give you her contact details and you can maybe discuss with her because she's gone through the process. And I also have friends who also have taken the open scholarships and have gone off to university. So yeah, I think that is probably a very good way to do it if you get these government scholarships and you go on to Cambridge, if you so be it. Yeah.
Okay, great. There's a question. Is it possible to do a double or triple major in different subjects? Okay, now we don't tend to do a thing where you pick one course and do half it and another course and do half of it. But there is a course called History and Politics, where basically you kind of do that. There's also a course called History and Modern Languages, where you kind of do that as well. Also, quite a lot of the other courses have lots of options within them. So, for example, as you've heard, modern languages, you start off with 2 languages. Usually they're 2 modern languages. You can do a modern and a classical. You can do a sort of modern European, Western Hemisphere language and, say, a Middle Eastern or Asian language. So Spanish and Arabic, for example, or French and Arabic is quite a popular mix. Also in the sciences, the way natural sciences is done is you actually pick 3 different sciences in the first year. So you might do, I don't know, physics, chemistry and earth sciences or something like that. So although we don't do sort of joint honours degrees, there's often these things are there's quite a lot of choice. You may find that actually you narrow down towards one particular thing as your course goes on. That's quite a common trend across lots of Cambridge degrees. There are other courses where really you have very little choice in what you do at all. Like if you're doing medicine, then you won't have any choice in the first 2 years at all. But you'll have complete choice of any science in your 3rd year. So that's a good question, but as you see, it's quite a complicated one. Okay, so just a minute, I'll just, so there is one, if I apply to medicine, will I still be able to choose something in music or drama? I still might hand this over to Zara. So basically the question is, will you have time to do something that's really unrelated to your subject when you're not working?
I think definitely. I think although you have a lot of work, you will, like I've come across so many people, like I do running as well, and you will find a way to find the balance because I mean, it depends on where your college is too, but like my college is very central to the center of Cambridge, and there's like little we have small like theaters that do a lot of performances. I think there's a Cambridge-wide theater group, and a lot of people are constantly doing things. There's one of my friends, actually, like one of my friend's friends, she's like directing plays and like writing, I don't know, the scripts for it. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to do music. You know, I mean, I play violin and piano, and there's college orchestras, there are different groups, different bands you can join. There's either college-wide or university-wide. So there's a lot of different things you can do, music and drama. There's a lot going on constantly, really, and you can get involved very easily, I think.
Okay, a couple of questions about medicine. If you're not, I'm not completely sure about doing medicine, is just doing medicine and another course? No, I think you either have to apply for medicine, or you can do another degree and then apply. We have this thing called the Cambridge Graduate Medical Course. So you can either do it, you either apply for medicine straight off, or you do something else and then apply for a graduate medical course. And of course, other medical schools do that as well. And the other one, A-level, instead of doing biology and chemistry, I'm doing physics and chemistry, but I'd love to do medicine. Yeah, you do not have to be doing biology to do medicine or veterinary medicine. Chemistry, physics, maths, the one you have to be doing is chemistry. Chemistry and especially 2 other math sciences would be good. So, you know, you do not need to be doing biology. I mean, I would kind of argue that maths, physics, and chemistry is the ideal combination to do, but I'm sure people would disagree with me. So, yeah, you don't have to be doing biology. Okay. Good day. I'm interested in computer science and computer engineering. Is there a way to get experience in both before choosing? We just have, again, it's kind of similar. We just have one big computer science course. And so you just start that. And then once you've done the sort of common course, that's when you kind of decide which direction you want to go in. Same is true with engineering. You do sort of general engineering at the beginning, and then people specialize after that, which in a way is much better, because once you've done a year at university in that subject, you have a much better idea of which direction you actually want to go in. Okay, so what do we have? There's, I don't know, are there any steel pan bands near Cambridge?
Honestly, I'm not too sure about that question. I was looking at that. To be honest, I really don't think so. And I was also looking at another question. Am I the only Trinidadian student in my year?
Yeah, you can take that one as well.
Yeah, I think I am. This is why I wanted to do this, because I'm trying to get more people to come from the Caribbean. I mean, like I said, there's a girl above me who is Trinidadian. And we have like an Afro-Caribbean society, but most people are like second generations. There's less people coming straight from the Caribbean, I've noticed. And I mean, I have a few friends in Oxford as well, but who have come from Trinidad, and they're in their first year now. But yeah, I'm the only one in my year that I know of right now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I mean, one of the reasons we like to do these things is the 2 parts of the world that Cambridge probably doesn't get enough students from are the Caribbean and South America.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons. So obviously we'd like to get all the best people we can from all around the world. There's a couple of questions about law. What was the purpose of a student choosing to study law from the Caribbean to go to law school from Cambridge? Well, like I said, you can either actually just apply to Cambridge to do a law degree, or you can apply to Cambridge to do any degree and then do a law conversion course. Not at Cambridge, it would be somewhere else, but you could obviously do it in the UK. Now, if you want to practice law outside the UK, I mean, I'm not a big expert on law, I have to say, but I think when you are thinking, if you want to be a lawyer in a certain country, then I think that does affect where you decide to train as a lawyer, because I think you basically, I think you should probably, you should contact the university you're thinking of applying, or contact the legal authorities in the country you would like to be a lawyer in, and say, you know, if I have a law degree from so-and-so, what would I then have to do to be a lawyer in so-and-so country? Because I think that's probably something you probably would want to get nailed down before you applied, I suspect, because you're right. I mean, what you're implying is you don't want to end up getting qualified in law in a country that you don't want to actually study law in. Okay, sorry, I'm just sort of going through the list as we are. Are there courses which will enable me to learn how to teach English as a second language? We don't have a course in that. We do actually have quite a lot of students who sort of in their vacations, they may do a course, they often do a course as part of teaching English somewhere else around the world. There are particular parts of the world who actually pay you quite a lot of money if you're a Cambridge student to come and teach them English, especially places like Japan, Hong Kong, and China. But of course, you can go anywhere around the world. Do you know anything particular about that, Sarah?
I'm not sure of the language center, because I know the language center does like different languages if you want to study a language. Like out with your degree, it doesn't matter regardless of what you're doing, if you're doing a language degree or not. You can go to the language center and learn whichever language. There's a wide variety of them actually. I'm not too sure about teaching English as a second language though, but I know they offer lots of different languages that you can learn on different levels as well, and you can continue throughout. And that is completely separate to like your degree that you're studying as well.
Okay. Where we have
About
what exactly is a major? Well, it doesn't really apply to. I mean, at some universities around the world, you do like a major subject, which is most of your work, and you do a minor to go along with it. Now, we don't really do that, so it is not relevant to us. So people, yeah, so it's not actually a term we tend to use. Undergraduate criminology degree. There's a law degree, and within that you would have an option to specialize in criminology later on. There is a department of criminology, but you don't just start criminology as a degree with us. But if that's the direction you want to go in, you probably apply for law and then specialize once you were in it. Okay. Is the application process any different for people doing their postgraduate specialization in medicine? So if you already had a medicine degree from somewhere else, yeah, that would be a completely different system. And I must admit, I wouldn't know exactly how you would do that, but that would involve sort of, gaining a job or gaining a placement with the National Health Service in the UK. I'm sure it can be done, but it's not really, you wouldn't kind of do it through the university in the same way. Can I transfer from college in the US? Is that possible? You can't transfer from a degree in the US if you've already started a degree part way. You can't come into a Cambridge course from that route. But also, it depends what you mean by college. If it's kind of like the equivalent of school, then obviously you can apply the same way that anybody else can. Is physics essential if you want to study medicine? No, we just recommend you do chemistry and preferably 2 out of physics, maths and biology.
David, there was a quick question I wanted to answer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, carry on.
The expected grades for CSEC and CAPE. So I'm not too sure. Do you know if the equivalent to O levels?
Yeah.
I don't know if those are looked at as much, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we will look at whatever the system in your country is.
So,
and yeah, so I don't tend to keep the actual entry requirements for every country in my head. But if you, like I say, if you look on the Cambridge website, there is the list of countries. If the qualification you're doing isn't listed, then contact an admissions office, and then we'll look up to see what the equivalent would be. Occasionally, there are some countries that kind of don't have a sort of at 16 exam system, and then in that case, we kind of have to think of something else. But so yeah, we'll kind of try and cope with anything.
So
okay.
with CSEC, I had I'm just going to tell people because I think they understand the same system. It's I think I had all ones for CSEC, and then for CAPE I also had the same. So it was all ones, which is like equivalent to A's, I guess. Yeah. And then yeah, so I think that's pretty much what they would expect probably. And it varies, I guess, according to which subject you're applying to too, maybe.
Okay, I'll just go through the Q&A from the top and try because we've sort of got quite a list now. what's the average cost of the medicine course? Again, look on the website. It's quite a lot if you're paying full fees. I have to say you probably would want a scholarship for that. Yeah, have a look on the website. I don't want to give you the wrong number, but it'll be right near the top of the Cambridge website. Do all these requirements apply to Oxford as well? Generally quite similar. There are some sort of mechanistic differences between the application process, but lots of things apply. What is the procedure for people who don't really know what they want to study? Well, not knowing what career you want to do is fine. That's absolutely no problem at all. But yeah, I mean, go on university websites, look at the courses they offer, and use that to try and see what you think you want to do. What's the best time to register? As I said, you have to apply by October the 15th for Oxford and Cambridge. So, sorry, it's just because we've got quite a few on this. What would look better on my record, an undergraduate degree in Cambridge or a master's degree from Cambridge? Both, I guess. I mean, that again, that's a personal decision for you to make, really. I want to do a bachelor's degree in computer science. Would it be necessary for me to doing maths to get in? Yes, it would be. I think you probably should be doing maths of some description, kind of something kind of equivalent to UK A-level maths. You can be studying it independently. You don't have to be doing it at school, but you would need some form of maths at a fairly high level. To start next year, would you have to apply this year? So you apply, say if you applied in October 2021, that would be to start in October 2022. Yeah. Although you can apply to start a year after that if you want to. What is student dorm going to cost if I receive an open scholarship? Well, a scholarship would kind of, what money you receive from a scholarship from another organisation would just be the amount of money they gave you. For the cost of accommodation, just look at our website, the college website. Medicine courses, but after that, yeah. The medicine course is 6 years, 3 years theory, 3 years clinical. After that, you just go straight to practicing medicine. Once, yeah, you are, and many people would stay working within the UK National Health Service, but of course you don't have to. So the answer is yes. What does Cambridge have to offer for someone interested in business studies? Well, yeah, business studies is it's a third-year course. It's actually there's management. Well, there's the various options. You could, if you want to do economics. Academic economics, you can apply to an economics degree. Otherwise, you can do management studies in the third year, and that's open. People can apply to that from any subject in their first 2 years. So, for example, after modern language, you can apply to it, or after veterinary medicine, you can apply for management studies. We don't actually have a business studies course as a first degree. There are various things like Masters of Finance and things like that, and MBAs like Masters in Business, but not as a first degree at Cambridge. Pharmacy, we don't actually offer a pharmacy course at Cambridge, and I don't think Oxford do either. We do pharmacology, but that's not for people who want to be pharmacists. That's the science of medicines, I suppose. If medicine would like to go to a medical school after, basically, if you apply for medicine at Cambridge, you're signing up for the whole 6 years. So you would do your preclinical, and then you do your clinical, and your 6 years, and then after that, you then decide what hospital you want to work at anywhere in the world. Other conditions for being allowed in postgraduate course as stringent as the undergraduate course. Well, they're just different. If you apply for a graduate course, obviously you'll be being assessed on your degree rather than how you did at school. So I think rather than being easier or harder, I'd just say it's different. Is it possible to study 3 or 4 languages at once? The limit is pretty much 2. in modern languages. We do have this course, Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic, but even in that, I think you can't study more than 2 of them at a time, as far as I'm aware.
If you three, and like in a sense, like I'm doing, you could pick up a third. Like I could have picked up Portuguese a little bit if I wanted to, but like I said, I think the language center is probably a good way to do additional languages if you want to.
Yeah, that's right. So for any student, you can always do something at the language center. If you're doing modern languages, you might decide 2 is more than enough. What's the best college for medicine? There aren't really best colleges for particular subjects, apart from the fact that Catharine is the best for all of them. Because if a college takes students in a subject, and most colleges take students in most subjects, they will support that subject. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily worry about the college choice from that point of view too much. With associate's degree, we don't do associate's degree, so I don't know the answer to that one. Do they have job fairs in Cambridge? Yes, we do. Well, in a normal year we do, but not. I assume they're kind of doing them online this year, are they? I don't know. What year are you in, Zara? I should know this. Second year. Yeah. Are the people in the years above you going to job fairs online?
In first year I went, I know they had the big fairs, but I think they do have things and they promoted things online. I didn't attend any, but I'm sure there probably was things online.
Okay. So certainly in a normal year there would be. Is there a forensic science undergraduate degree? No, not as such. I think if you want to do forensics through us, I mean, we have had people who've gone on to become forensic scientists. You would either do it, decide to be a doctor, so do medicine first and go through it that route, or you would do natural sciences and do it that way. Yeah, so it'd be quite a good. Those courses would be quite a good way to get into forensics and get a very good start into that career. But we don't have the course in itself. Can you apply for your? Oh, this is a good one. Can you apply before you receive your final exam results? Well, most UK applicants certainly do, and most overseas applicants, most non-UK applicants do as well. So what you would tend to do is you would apply. Most people would apply before. You can apply after, that's absolutely fine, but most people apply in their last year at school. Depends what your school year is in your country. If it's the same as us, then obviously that's fine. And you would be given, if you're successful in the first part of the application process, you get what's called a conditional offer, which you would get a place based on you getting certain grades in certain public exams. So was that what happened to you, Zara? Or?
Yeah, I applied in upper 6 and then I got the conditional offer after I went through the whole process and the interview. And then once I got the confirmation of my grades, and I accepted and everything was fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, some countries in the Caribbean have a very UK-like school system.
Yeah,
some have a very US-like school system, and some do other things as well. But in general, yeah, no, most people apply before they've got their final results. Like Australians, they apply, and then the results come in about usually 2 weeks after they've been interviewed. So it kind of depends where in the world you are. Is it harder for international students to be accepted? No, because the initial assessment is that, well, there's one exception. The initial assessment is done entirely on the basis of your academic potential. And actually, we have quite a few applicants where we haven't worked out what their fee status is by the time we do that. We do that afterwards. The one exception is medicine, where we have government-imposed limits on the number of non-UK medical students we can take each year. So medicine, it can be a bit harder for international students to get in, but in other subjects, no, it is the same. So actually with Zara, for example, they may not bother to work out your fee status when they decided to make you an offer.
There's another question relating to one of the questions we just answered. It's to do with the results. Yes, you apply with Unit 1 results. So that's the first set of CAPE results, and then you wait for your Unit 2 results. You can apply before you sit Unit 2. I think you have to put your predictions for Unit 2, maybe. I think you get, like, from the school, you give your predictions for Unit 2. And then, like I said, once you get your Unit 2 results, you can then confirm your place if you get accepted. So yeah, you can apply Unit 1 CAPE results, yeah.
Is A-level maths a prerequisite for economics? Well, a maths at that level is required for economics. It doesn't have to be A-level, but A-level or equivalent, yeah, you do have to be doing maths. There's one, I don't know what's an A100? It says, can the A100 be taken more than once? I'm not sure what.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what that is. It kind of depends. Email the college you're thinking of applying to and see what they say. I'm good at maths and statistics. I want to make as much money as possible straight out of university. I'm also decent at economics. Which undergraduate degree should I pursue? I think if you want to make the most money out of university, I think maths or physical science is good, because they're often the best route to getting into some sort of finance, which would make you lots of money quite quickly, I suppose. But quite a lot of people get into finance and make loads of money from lots of different courses as well. So yeah, I suppose if money yeah, maths is quite a good one. But I mean, you know, if you're really that way inclined, it's like the woman who kind of runs the finances of our college, for example. She was actually in my year at another college, and although she now runs the financial side of things, her course was history. A100, the medical entrance exam. So the BMAT. No, you can only take it once in any 1 year. Yeah, you only get one sitting in a year. Food and nutrition related courses, again, that would be the elements of that in, I suppose, natural sciences from the scientific point of view, medicine from the medical point of view. As far as sort of food production and development and land management, there'd be land economy, another weird course, and also I suppose geography as well. How example are extra and supercurricular activities? Extracurricular activities to us, not at all. Supercurricular to the extent at which we might ask you about them in interview. And how you talk about them in interview can be very important. It's not so much what you've written about them, but how you talk about them when we ask you about them in interview. Did you get asked about anything like that in your interview, Zara? Sorry.
Yeah, I remember writing. I had written about communication studies and Caribbean studies a bit, and I think they were very interested in talking a lot about that. We went into like the language and like Creole, and we talked about that quite a bit. So yeah, like what I did have in my statement, we did end up talking about quite a bit, and it was like different things, like things beyond as well. Yeah, like things that you've just gone and looked at. Like I ended up watching movies, certain like Spanish films, and I'm not sure if we talked, but I think it was more about, we went into like a certain path on like one specific topic that I had spoken about, and we went kind of in depth into that. So yeah, you need to know and be able to like kind of talk about it conversationally, I guess, in an academic way, of course. Yeah.
Okay, what should I include in my application letter? You don't write a covering letter when you do an application through UCAS. So it's just what's on your personal statement. So you don't need to write an application letter. Subject requirements for the engineering degrees. For engineering, you need to be doing maths and physics. For computer science, you need to be doing maths. Do you need to give the general reports from secondary school? Some people include them with their application. If you have any public exam marks, let's say 16, then we may look at those a bit more, but many non-UK applicants, many international applicants do include those as well. How much we look at them kind of depends on what else we've got, I would say. Can you do postgraduate studies after doing undergraduate studies at Caribbean University? Definitely. I'm actually also a postgraduate admissions tutor as well. So the answer to that is definitely yes. Can you apply to Cambridge twice? Yes, you can. We're quite happy to accept applications from people who've applied before, even if, you know, well, obviously the first time they haven't been successful, and that's absolutely fine. One thing we do say is you might want to try a different college, because then you'll have a completely new go with different interviewers. Okay, there's a few in the chat as well. I think quite a lot of these we've kind of done already. Who do you have to apply to for financial support? The university. As I said, go on the financial section of our website. So that question that's been there a while, so they probably realised I'd answered that already. To apply for law, is there any specific subject you need? No. 3 good academic subjects is all we need. Don't mind what they are at all. You can, oh yeah, interviews. Yeah, so there is an option that we're kind of thinking about how the interviews are going to be next year. There is an option to be interviewed in Toronto. But yeah, wait and see on how we're doing the interviews, because you may find that changes quite a lot by next year, even if COVID is all sorted out by then. Can I apply to more than one college? No, you can only apply to one. There is no drama course at Cambridge or Oxford, although of course if you do English literature, or indeed if you do something like modern languages or Asian Middle Eastern studies, there may be theatre related and cinema related topics and strands. They're often particularly popular. What are your geography postgrad programs like? Again, I think you just go and have a look on our geography department website, because they will have them. There'll be MPhils and PhDs and master's courses. But yeah, just go and have a look on their website. There you go, Zara. Is it that you're naturally brilliant, or do you have very good study methods and routines?
Honestly, this is kind of hard. This is a interesting question. Yeah, I think I probably towards the Cape, yeah, I did figure out more study methods. I mean, for Spanish, I can't, like, for languages, I kind of just have a thing for languages. I mean, I did biology, pure math, and Spanish for Cape, which is kind of odd, I know, but we went with it. And yeah, I just kind of, you just keep going at it. I don't really like to just study. I usually like do a lot of things, run, walk. Like I would make sure like I'm not just studying, because that would kind of drive me crazy. I don't know about you, but that would drive me crazy for sure. And if you want to go into more detail, you can always contact me. We can talk more about like different specific study strategies, because I guess it's also a very personal thing and you just have to try things out and see what works for you.
Great. Well, we've gone for a little bit over an hour actually, so that's been quite a good session. Well, I hope you all found that interesting, sort of hear a bit about how it works, and particularly to hear sort of Zara's personal perspective on the process. As I said, more information you could ever need on the various websites, and the easy thing is just to Google Cambridge University or a particular college. The Cambridge University website does have a list of colleges that takes you off to all the colleges as well. And then once you do find a college you think you might want to apply to, again, you can just email the admissions office if the information you need isn't on the college's website. Okay, so with that, I'll say, well, thank you all for attending. Particularly thank you to Zara for helping us out and giving her perspective on things. And if you do decide to apply, we wish you luck. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.